Alright, so these are my NBA playoff recaps, part 7. This is going to be the games from May 24th to May 27th. So basically games 3 and 4 of both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. So getting started off first here with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Oklahoma City Thunder. It is now a 3-1 series in favor of OKC. Game 3 was a blowout for Minnesota. They won by 42 points. Pretty much everything went good for them and everything went bad for OKC. Minnesota shot 57% from the field. OKC shot 40% from the field. Minnesota shot 50% from 3. OKC was at 31. OKC had 14 turnovers to Minnesota's 10. Like I said, everything went well for Minnesota. OKC had guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shoot pretty poorly, only 4 of 13. While they had guys like Anthony Edwards have 30 points on 70% shooting. So, just stuff like that. A lot of really good shooting performances from Minnesota in Game 3 and a lot of poor shooting performances for OKC in Game 3. There's not really a whole lot else to talk about. It was just a blowout game, and it was a massive difference in terms of efficiency for both of these teams. As you look into Game 4, this was a very good game, a 2-point win for OKC. Very easily could have gone Minnesota's way, and we were so close to having a 2-2 series. But now we do have a 3-1 series lead for OKC, which is going to make it pretty hard for Minnesota to come back. But not impossible. The last time OKC was in a Western Conference Finals, they ended up blowing a 3-1 lead to the Golden State Warriors. So it's certainly possible. But looking at the box score here in Game 4. Both teams shot really good from the field and from 3. Oklahoma City 50% from the field, Minnesota 51, and they both shot 43% from 3. So again, very good offensive performances from both sides, and that is why it was a very high scoring, very close game. The difference in this game was that Minnesota had 21 turnovers to OKC's 14. When you lose the turnover battle by 7 in a 2-point loss, it's definitely noticeable. So Minnesota obviously needs to fix their turnover issue a little bit. You can't have 20 plus turnovers a game and expect to win. They wasted a really good shooting performance in Game 4 by having too many turnovers. Looking at the box score, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 40 points. Jalen Williams had 30 plus, and Chet Holmgren had 20 plus. So pretty much between those 3 guys at 100 points already. Not ideal if you are Minnesota. You got to stop Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a little bit. You're not going to stop him completely, but you'd like to hold him to under 30 at the bare minimum if you want a good shot of winning these games. And now looking for Minnesota in Game 4, they had some good offensive performances as well. They had Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Donte DiVincenzo both have 20 points off of the bench, but your stars, Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, struggled. They combined for 21 points on 6 of 20 shooting. So when your 2 stars are playing that poorly, it's going to be very hard to win the game. And this was a 2-point loss, right? In a game where Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle very much struggled offensively. They only lost by 2. So even if one of those guys would have struggled just a little bit less, they probably would have won this game. So that's definitely not a good thing to see from Minnesota, having your stars struggle in a very, very important game here. And that is probably going to be the reason Minnesota loses this series. Because if they tie this up and go 2-2, it's anyone's game. But they lose this game by 2 points, down 3-1, going back to OKC. I find it very hard to see this game extending any more than 5 games. Maybe Minnesota gets 1 win there in OKC, but then Oklahoma City probably does close it out in absolutely no more than 6 games. Moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Knicks and the Pacers. This is also a 3-1 series. All these games have been pretty close. The highest margin of victory is 9 points. So all single-digit games. So definitely a little bit tighter series than the OKC series. Looking at Game 3 for New York, they changed up their starting lineup here. They started Mitchell Robinson instead of Josh Hart. Now, Josh Hart still ended up playing 30-some minutes off the bench, so it doesn't necessarily matter too much. But it did make a little bit of a difference for the first part of this game when Mitchell Robinson was the starter. They started off the game, I think, stronger than they have a couple games before. They utilized their bench a lot more in this game as well. They had Miles McBride, DeLon Wright, and Landry Shamet all have double-digit minutes off the bench, so they actually ran like a legitimate 9-man rotation in this game. It very much made a difference, right? I was talking about this in my last video that New York needs to ride their bench a little bit more because they cannot rely on their starters to play 40 plus minutes a game and expect to win. Right, in game 3, the highest minutes for any starter was 36 minutes for OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. No one played over 36 minutes. That is good. Right, also Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson were very much in foul trouble in game 3. Right, they didn't play over 32 minutes. So those guys, were in foul trouble, and they relied on their bench, and it worked. So, obviously, that's a really good point here for New York. Before Indiana in game 3, they just shot really poorly from 3. They shot 20% from 3 after shooting 40 plus in the first 2 games, and that was pretty much the difference maker here. They had 14 less points because they shot a lot worse from the 3-point line. Looking into game 4, similar story for the Knicks. They started Mitchell Robinson. They used their bench a little bit more. It just did not work as much in this game. They did do better offensively, have 121 points. Obviously, it's really good. But defensively, they could not shut down Indiana. Indiana shot 40% from 3 in this game once again. Right, they shot over 40% from 3 in 3 of these 4 games, and they have won all 3 of those. So, New York needs to find a way to be able to win games where Indiana is going to shoot really good. I know that's kind of hard to do, especially because New York was pretty good offensively as well, shooting 42% from 3. But they did have 17 turnovers to Indiana's 11. So 6 turnovers in this game very well could have been a 9-point difference, right? So New York needs to, cut back on the turnovers, right? They really need to let Indiana not shoot 40%, but they still should be able to win a game if Indiana is shooting 40%, because New York shot 42, right? They still shot better than Indiana in this game, and they lost. So turnovers are a big issue. Defense, obviously a big issue. Letting up 130 points, never really ideal. Looking at the box score for Indiana, Tyrese Halliburton had a 30-point triple-double. Pascal Siakam had 30 points as well. So those guys are just balling out. Benedict Mathurin also had 20 points in only 12 minutes in this game. New York, you cannot be letting somebody put up 20 points in 12 minutes. That's really kind of embarrassing, especially for a guy who's hardly played significant minutes in this series. For New York, on the box score here, Jalen Brunson was really good. OG Anunoby and Cat also had 20-plus points. It's just, defensively, they could not really stop Indiana, and that was a big difference maker in this game. So Indiana, original pick, Indiana in 7. And I find it very hard to see them winning in any less than 6. Then they go back to New York for Game 5. So I feel like New York could definitely win Game 5, but I would think Indiana would absolutely close it out in 6. But that's going to be it for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back later this week for an updated playoff recap, and goodbye.